It's the Daily Doug.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Daily Doug. Thanks for being with me today. My friends, I am diving back into music from the Beatles today. It's been too long and I'm just really excited to hear Helter Skelter from the Beatles as well as a few covers today. And I'll tell you how this particular episode came to be. So back in May of this year on our Discord, we were discussing and upvoting our favorite metal songs for our Metal May countdown for our fan favorites video. And this song, Helter Skelter, was put forward by one of our patrons. And I had to think about it because is Helter Skelter a metal song or is it not? And it's a tough one. I ended up nixing that option and taking it out of the poll, mainly because I just wasn't comfortable with having the Beatles in our metal countdown, since the Beatles are not a metal, band. But in the intervening weeks, I've been reading up on this song. I've been thinking about it a little bit, and I've realized that I just didn't know as much about this song as I should, and as much as the song deserves, quite frankly. So today, for Masterpiece Friday, we're going to be diving into the original recording by the Beatles, as well as a few of the many covers that have been done to this song over the years. And we're going to have some fun and see if we can, dissect it a little bit and see what its secrets are, as why and to why it's such an influential song. So let's get to it, shall we? The song first appeared on the White Album, of course. It was released in 1968. And although it's credited to both Lennon and McCartney, the song is completely written by Paul. Paul has wrote that he was inspired to write and record Helter Skelter from something that Pete Townsend of The Who had said about one of their songs. So Pete had boasted that The Who had recorded the loudest, rawest, dirtiest song of their career. And Paul, I think, thought that they might be able to outdo it a little bit or match it somehow. The song from The Who is I Can See for Miles, which is a great song, right? So this is the one that Paul kind of responded with, a song of his own that's maybe even louder and a bit more raw. We'll see. It's not really a competition, but it's true. It's a truism that musicians and peers will take ideas and things that other musicians have done and see if they can spin it and how it might feel in their own voice to do some similar sounds. And so it's going to be great to look into this one today. We've got Paul McCartney. We're starting with the source, y'all. We got to start with the Beatles. So it's Paul McCartney on lead vocal, and Paul is on rhythm guitar on this one. John Lennon is on a backing vocal, and John's on the bass this time. George Harrison is also on a backing vocal and is on some guitars. Ringo Starr is our drummer, and I think they have a guest musician named Mal Evans on trumpet. So let's go to the source here, y'all. It's the original Helter Skelter from the Beatles and their White Album. Off we go. There it is. Dissonance right off the top. He's just out there on a razor's edge singing this, right? So raw. That's an E, up a G, and up to A. Great riffs. So Listen to the guys in the background. They're singing a major chord. Major chord. Major chord. E major, or like an E7, like an A7, and then back. It's a major chord. They're all major chords, but what Paul is singing is from the minor scale. This is really cool how that works. There's George with a little lead in there.
When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide, and I stop and I turn and I go for a ride, and I get to the bottom and I see you again. Yeah, yeah.
Right? So he goes,
But don't you want me to make you?
that's minor, all day long. Take a baby, so for me. Listen to G.
But you ain't no dancer. Look out, Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter.
Pretty cool. Look out. It's the Helter Skelter. Really just 3 chords. But it's making use of differing scales within those 3 chords. It's been a long, long time since I heard this whole original version of this song. I almost forgot that they do this crazy stuff at the end. And then, I think George Martin was like leaning up against the volume knob. Just goes down, and you think it's done, but there's more song. I've never understood that. It's almost kind of punk, right? Yeah, in this song, we're just gonna, turn down us playing and then bring it back up. You know why? Because there are no rules. We're making our own rules. And I think that John was using like a saxophone mouthpiece to make some of those sounds. Yeah.
I got blisters on my fingers.
I got blisters on my fingers. I read that was Ringo who says that, but that sounded like John. I wonder if y'all know. In my read-in, that specifically said that was Ringo. Maybe it was, but it kind of sounded like John to me as well. So there you go, friends. That's the original. And it's so great, right? I never understood the opening lyrics, really, until just recently when I was reading up on this song. In Britain, Helter Skelter is an amusement park slide, an amusement park ride. And most of the time it looks like a windmill or some sort of tower, and they have a spiral slide going around the perimeter of it. So when Paul talks about getting to the bottom, going back to the top of the slide, that's what he's talking about. He stops, he turns, he goes for a ride, and he gets to the bottom and he sees his sweetie again, right? None of that has to be a metaphor. He could be talking and saying exactly what's happening, that he's in an amusement park and he's enjoying himself on a date, but it also really does work as a multi-layered metaphor, doesn't it? This ride from the top to the bottom could also stand for the rise and fall of a society, or the rise and demise of a society, the breaking down of normal order. It could, all of that is in play. And I want to tell y'all a little bit about this before I move on to a couple of covers here. What I was saying about the music is really interesting. To me, they're just doing 3 chords. It's an E major or maybe E7. E7 to G and then A7. They don't sound like they're in the same key, do they? Because they're not. Because they're not. If I'm in E major, right, then that A7 is not in the same key because it's got a G natural in it, where the E has an E or a G sharp in it. So if you get like these 7th chords doing like a little Beatles dance, E7, A7, right? They're just kind of playing a blues-inspired riff, except we never get a dominant. And the guys are in the background going, ya-dum, da, A to G, A to E, A to E. In the meantime, Paul's going, ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, ba-da-be-dum, singing from the E minor collection. And it's just really interesting. But those 7th chords really are, I think, the foundation for what Paul is going for, especially when you consider those bow-no-no-no-no-no-no, those runs, because they happen they start on the 7ths of these chords. If I go to the A, it goes to the 7th on the G, natural. It goes all the way down the A dominant scale, down to A, G, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, B, A, yada dee da dee da dum bum, goes to the E, back to A, and so on. And that's how that stuff is constructed. You get a dominant 7th that forms the basis of the chords, but melodically, Paul is singing a lot of tones from the parallel minor scale, the minor key. And that's kind of fun how that all plays together, doesn't it? So next, let's hear some covers. We're listening to this song, so we might as well see what other people have done with it, because part of what I wanted to really go through today is just how influential not only the Beatles have been to many different kinds of musicians over the years, but this song specifically, how people and musicians from different walks of life in different styles have all adapted this and made it their own. So first, I want to go to U2. Great band, right? So this cover is actually the version of this song that first introduced me to the song. I was 12 when this came out. This is from U2's live album, Rattle and Hum, and it was performed in Denver, Colorado in November of 1987. The live album came out in 1988, and it was right in the mix there for me when I was of age, and so I heard this before I heard the original Beatles version. It wasn't too long after that I heard it, but I remember hearing this version from Rattle and Hum and really, really thinking it was a cool song. So for this one, we've got Bono on the vocals, we've got The Edge on guitars, Adam Clayton's on the bass, and Larry Mullen Jr. is on the drums. Here's what U2 did with Helter Skelter. Off we go. This is right after the Joshua Tree. They're at the height of their powers, and they do this.
Charles Manson stole from the Beatles.
Charles Manson stole from the Beatles, and we're stealing it back. I'll talk about that in a minute.
When you get to the bottom, you go back to the top of the slide, and you stop, and you
Do you hear the different key?
Then you get to the bottom, then you see me go.
They're in a different key. They're tuned down. Minor. To the minor 3, to the flat 3, to the 4. think these melodies, these scales going down, are part of the secret sauce. It is for me. It's my favorite part of the song. Those bow no 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 no. Love those. It's a great cover, isn't it? A four-piece for a four-piece. Really well constructed. So here, it's being adapted by another rock band. So the overall feel of it, it's a little, there you go, re-rack. Bono's got such a great voice. Lower third, then the fourth. This is a little bit cleaner in its presentation than the Beatles, right? Bono's not on the edge vocally like Paul was. It's a little bit slower, just a hair. So they get to E flat by tuning down. Makes it easier to sing, I think. So there you go. So Bono, and the crowd goes wild, right? Bono at the beginning of that mentioned how Charles Manson had stolen, quote unquote, this song from the Beatles. So I, of course, have heard of Charles Manson, his cult, and the vicious murders and the misdeeds that they carried out. But I wasn't as up on this Helter Skelter connection specifically before I read more in. Apparently, and to make a long story short, Manson somehow came to believe that there were some songs on the White Album that were part of a coded prophecy for an apocalyptic race or racial war, and Manson ended up adopting this phrase "helter skelter" as the name of his own vision and plan. And of course, the Beatles songs didn't allude to anything like what Manson was thinking about and saying, but Manson did succeed, I guess, in associating this phrase not only with the Beatles, but also with him and his movement. And I think that's why Bono sought to take the name back, or the song back, from its association with Charles Manson. I think it'll always kind of be that way because now it's part of history, right? And there was, I think, a TV movie made about it, and some other things that went into that in terms of trying to figure out what was going on with the Manson family. But yeah, so is this song a metal song, friends? Is it a rock song? Is it a punk song? Or does it even matter what it is? So another one of the covers that I was very much encouraged to listen to while I was doing this episode is the cover from Motley Crue. Now, I've heard Motley Crue songs too. I mean, I grew up in that era, in the mid '80s and the late '80s of hair bands, and I as much as I really wasn't a fan back in the day, I couldn't avoid it. Just like a 12-year-old boy's scent, you couldn't avoid hair metal, right? Back in the day. So Motley Crue did this cover, and they included it on their second album, which is called Shout at the Devil, and that was released in 1983. And this album was the one that helped put Motley Crue on the metal map. And they used this song as part of their repertoire to make that happen. So let's see how a metal band adapts this one. This is one of the more watched and like kind of commercially successful covers of this that I've seen. So Vince Neil is our vocalist, Mick Mars is on the guitars, Nikki Sixx is on the bass, and Tommy Lee is our drummer. So let's see what Motley Crue did with Helter Skelter. Off we go. Woo! Faster. And back in E. That's the E in the subtonic. So the riff is more minor, overtly. There's the flat 3. They include the riff. The riff works wherever you are. But again, a more metal style of guitar playing. Lengthen that. Pretty good, right? Go to the 4. Okay. Check it out.
When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. I get to the top, I go for a ride. I get to the bottom, I do again. I do again. Do you don't want me to love you? I'm coming down that bottom.
Totally works as a metal riff, doesn't it? You keep that going before they go up. It's exactly the same as what the Beatles did on those A's and E's. I've never heard this before. The U2 one and the Beatles version are ones that I had heard. Never heard this from Motley Crue. But it totally works. It's totally adaptable into a heavy metal style. But does it make it a heavy metal song? In this instance, sure. Okay, Motley Crue. So we've heard a cover from another rock band. We've heard a cover from a metal band, hair metal band. How about a punk or post-punk band? This one, this version specifically, Megan really was asking me to include. She thought it was important. So I want to hear it as well. This is from a band called Siouxsie and the Banshees. Siouxsie is spelled S-I-O-U-X, like Sioux, Native Americans. S-I-O-U-X-S-I-E, Siouxsie and the Banshees. I've never even heard of this band, y'all. But they formed in London in 1976, and they were a part of this punk and post-punk wave in music. And it looks like they've got this song as well, and they included it on their debut album, which was called The Scream, and it was released in 1978. So right as punk is kind of coming into flavor and disco a little bit, and you get this new band who's gonna do their own version of Helter Skelter. So let's hear it. We're here. We might as well do one more. It's a short song. So Siouxsie Sue is on vocals, Steve Severin is on the bass, John McKay is on the guitars, and Kenny Morris is our drummer. So let's hear from Siouxsie and the Banshees with their version of Helter Skelter. Here we go. I think it's the first time I've ever done 4 versions of the same song in one video. Pretty cool. And this is not like anything at all. I think that's an A, based on what I've been hearing before. Maybe this is what happens after Helter Skelter. The sequel. Those are not the right chords. It sounds a little bit like Florence and the Machine a little. Her voice. That should be the 4. I don't even know if they're... A to B, up to C, up to D. Yeah. Strange. This is making my ear just scratch my head. Fascinating. So that sounds like a 4-2. She's not singing. Back to A. That broke every single rule I could think of. They didn't do it in the same key. Slightly different tempo. They're picking different chords. Not only different chords for the key that they're in, but different chords for just how the song goes, which means she's also adapting a slightly different melody, and they adapted the riff, no, right, going down. Siouxsie and the Banshees playing by their own rules as they did their cover. Is it Helter Skelter? Yeah, it's close enough. but they really came up with a new way to do that song. So it appeals to rock musicians, it appeals to metal musicians, it appeals to punk musicians. I saw that Rob Zombie and Marilyn Manson did this not too long ago. I also saw that Pat Benatar, that would be cool. I should listen to that. She's got a great voice. Did this song as well. There's a lot of people over the years that have covered this song. Even in recent concerts, Paul McCartney himself has continued to include Helter Skelter in his set list. And that brings me back to Paul himself. He's amazing, isn't he? It's an understatement, of course, but the range of his songwriting is really laudable. He's got great range, and it's baffling on one level to think of Helter Skelter coming out of the same mind as a song like Yesterday or a song like Hey Jude. You know, but he did also write Live and Let Die. Maybe I'm Amazed. I'm trying to think of some heavier tunes. Jet, Let Me Roll It. So he's a rocker as well, but he's also, just an overall songwriter. It doesn't really matter how the song gets interpreted or arranged. If the words are good and the melodies are good and it speaks to something that just sparks an idea or energy in us, then we can pay attention to it and grab onto it and be affected by it. Really, really cool stuff. So did we figure out if this is actually a metal song or not? And if it is or isn't, does it even matter? I think of it as a rock song more than anything. And the fact that it's using those blues style conventions for using these alterations between major and minor in the chords and in the scales, it makes for a really powerful and lasting song, doesn't it? This has been fun. Like I said, I think it's the first time I've ever included 4 versions of the same song on an episode. But there's a first time for everything. And it's been eating away at me ever since this idea came up in May with our fan favorites and is it metal or is it not? It's been gnawing at me. And so I just wanted to spend some more time with the song. I think I come down on the fact that it's not metal, but it can be if you adopt it and adapt it that way. And so that means I think it's a great song. It's versatile and can be applied in any number of ways, even with Siouxsie and the Banshees doing what they did with it. It still was quite interesting to me. So we're better off, right? We're better off having Paul's songs in our lives. We're better off having Paul's and John's songs in our lives. It's so sad that, John died as soon as he did. I can only imagine the music that John could have written and collaborated on all of these years, and Paul's still out there and doing his thing. It's an amazing thing. I love the Beatles. I've come to love the Beatles, even though I wasn't around when they were active and doing their thing. I didn't learn about them and their music until, 20-something years after they had completed their run as a band. But the music still lives on, and Helter Skelter is one of the more well-known and iconic songs in their discography, I think. So, this has been fun for a Masterpiece Friday. If you liked it, let me know some other songs that I might need to dive into and do some other covers of, just to see how it's interpreted and how it's made new by these other bands. I would love to see what y'all think, but I believe that's going to be all for me today and this week. I thank y'all very much for being with me, and we'll see you next time on another edition of the Daily Doug.
It's the Daily Doug. Welcome to the Daily Doug. The Daily